This spring break, choose your own Disney adventure with our very own Travel Bug Girls Disney Expert. A 3-day Disney park experience including resort accommodations and Disney dining. Cassie specializes in crafting custom vacations full of joy, ease, and just the right amount of Mickey-shaped snacks. She takes the stress out of planning, adds a dash of enchantment, and turns every trip into a storybook adventure. Visit travelbuggirls.com or click the link in our show notes to find out how Travel Bug Girls can make your Disney dreams come true. Welcome to the Travel Bug Girls podcast, the show where we dive into the world of travel, exploring everything from expert tips and insider secrets to unforgettable destinations and the latest trends. Whether you're a seasoned globetrotter or planning your very first adventure, we've got you covered with the advice and inspiration you need to make your travels truly unforgettable. So sit back, relax, and let's take your travel planning to the next level. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Travel Bug Girls podcast. I'm Kimmy, and I'm here with Heather, Tina, and Kara. And today we're going to continue our conversation about first-time international travel. Our last episode about this was transportation, so how you're going to get there. And so today we are going to talk about probably one of the most important parts. Where are you going to sleep? We always want to have a good, nice, comfy bed to sleep in. And that does not always happen, but there's a lot more options for sleeping than you might think when you first start thinking about this, beyond just a hotel, especially when you're traveling internationally. So that's kind of what we're going to get into today. And so let's get started with what do hotels and resorts look like around the world? So we have like luxury hotels, hotel chains. So there's chains that have hotels in the States and all over the world. There's local hotels like boutique hotels. There's historic hotels, all kinds of different experiences. So do you guys have any experience with any different types of hotels in internationally?
Yeah, one of the things that has come up with some clients recently is people asking when they're traveling internationally if they're requesting an experience that is more like the local experience versus an American experience traveling, or vice versa. Sometimes you really want that comfort of, I know how this hotel works, I know how a buffet works, I know what my bed's gonna feel like you kind of want that safety net experience because you're going out every day and experience a different culture. So coming back to something that's familiar can be comforting. But then having other clients who, like I said, are looking for more of a unique experience. And sometimes just changing the hotel selection can do that for you. For example, I have clients that are traveling to Japan. And as you can imagine, a traditional Japanese way of sleeping is very different than the traditional American way of sleeping. So even just the way the bedroom is set up is going to be very different. The food that's offered at breakfast is going to be very different. So making sure that you look at those options if it matters to you. But also, if you're taking your grandma somewhere really risky and she's not a big traveler, then you could go the other direction and be like, I'm in a foreign country, but we're going to choose a very American or British hotel that is going to make grandma feel very comfortable and safe every night and every morning before we go and do a bunch of crazy different things. So choosing your hotel based on what experience you're looking for can really make a big difference.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it goes into that also considering a lot of European hotels look very different, function very differently than your basic American hotel. So if it is not an international chain that you're used to, there is a pretty good possibility that it might not have air conditioning. It probably is not going to have an elevator, at least not a big one. So all of these are also things you have to either have someone booking it for you that has that on their radar, or take an extra beat on the website that you're looking at to see because it's not a given. Yes. It's it's there. Several have those options, but it's not a given. It's not a baseline automatic over there. So because you think about the buildings over there are just much older. They were not built anyway. So to add those things in can be a larger expense than is worth it. So you have to take an extra beat to make sure they have those things if they're important to you, or like Heather was saying, go with what's comfortable and book a hotel that you recognize.
Yeah, and I think that what Kara's talking about is exactly why we end up with people saying terrible things about other cities sometimes. Really it comes down to expectation. If you're expecting everything to be like what it is at home, the price, the experience, right, the air conditioning, the bathrooms, if you're expecting it to be the same as at home, and then nobody's warned you, and you haven't worked with a travel agent who could tell you this or warn you about the experience being different, and especially if we're looking at saving money, then you're more likely to end up in a situation where you're going to struggle. So, my advice to someone, for example, going to Paris for the first time is often, let's save our money in these other ways. Let's spend your money in the hotel experience you want so that you feel safe and happy and comfortable every night and every morning. Especially if you're walking and you're coming in late after walking all day, you want to make sure you have the hotel that is right for your experience, instead of saving a bunch of money. Also, we've talked in the past about location. Sometimes a bargain hotel means it's a long way from where all the daily stuff you're going to be doing, and now you're spending a lot of extra money and back and forth travel. So making sure you choose the right hotel for you is a big important first step when planning your trip.
You mentioned bathrooms. Let's touch on that for a minute. Like, how are bathrooms? Because I think this is something that people don't necessarily think about, and then they get somewhere and they're like, "Oh, what is this? Like,
what is happening?"
So let's just touch on that for a minute. Like, how might the bathroom experience in an international hotel differ than what people might be used to?
Most commonly, the flush knob is not going to be where you think it is. It could be coming out of the ceiling. Also a possibility, a bidet. You don't necessarily have to use it, but sometimes it's automatic. Also,
surprise.
Yeah.
There's no warning because that's the culture, but I mean, usually you can choose. The most, I mean, for me, the most different that I've experienced is some places there's not what we come to expect as a toilet seat. Like there's not the top part in some places. It's and then you got to figure that out.
That's very, very, very common across Europe. Is if there's a full toilet, just imagine your toilet without the seat attachment. That's what we're talking about. And that would be extremely common. And that's still an upgrade from some of the older ways where there's like a porcelain hole in the ground with footrest and handlebars. And you're squatting, right? My mom calls them squatty potties. Yeah.
And that's where your local yoga instructor will help you.
It would be helpful to have some skill.
The squat is important anyway in our lives. In other cultures, that is just a way of, they say pop a squat just to sit and chat or play a card game or something. But with our lives in chairs, we don't have the ankle and hip mobility as much anymore. So it's something you have to practice on and get your body prepared.
Talk about being shocked when you open the door and that's what's on the other side. It's a thing. Also, paying to use the toilet can really throw people off. That's very common in Europe. Now, probably not in your hotel. We started this conversation with hotels, but you might encounter shared bathroom. And
I was wondering about that too.
That goes back to Kara's point of a lot of these buildings were here way before plumbing, way before plumbing and electricity and all the other things. So they're not designed to have a bathroom bathroom in every room. And so they're turning these old, beautiful buildings into a hotel, then there's something going to be different. Either they have carved out space in the room, so now your room is smaller because they put a cabinet bathroom, and that's what it looks like. It looks like a cabinet was shoved in the corner of the room, and that's your bathroom and shower somehow. Those are tiny. It's kind of barely bigger than a airplane bathroom, you know, but it's giving you that privacy of having your own bathroom space in your bedroom. Or you might be sharing a couple of rooms, sharing a bathroom at the end of the hall, for example, is kind of common in some areas. And that could be anywhere in the UK or Europe that you're experiencing that. And it will be marked, though, on modern hotel reservation sites and stuff. You're always going to see it marked. So but make sure you look. If you're not used to that and you're not, purchasing from a major American chain, then you want to look and see, am I sharing? Especially if you're in like a bed and breakfast or something, you're going to expect to probably be sharing. Hostels and bed and breakfasts in particular, that's going to be standard.
And some places you may want to, I know in Costa Rica and some place in Mexico, the plumbing is not same as United States. And so they try to put less into it. So that's where you may find, and just like a cruise ship too, you don't put toilet paper in the toilet, you put it in the wastebasket. And that sometimes takes people by surprise. It's a different culture thing and based on different plumbing. And so that's one of the experiences that you're learning by traveling is people do things different.
Well, let's move on and talk about resorts. One type of resort, we have resorts that are more like a fancy hotel, but then we also have all-inclusive resorts when you're traveling internationally. And so that's kind of a luxury type hotel where everything is included. Your food's included, drinks. You don't really have to worry about paying an extra bill at the end of but you're basically staying on property kind of for everything. You do an all-inclusive, you're not really going to visit the city. You're just kind of in that resort and kind of staying right there. What do y'all find that's unique about an all-inclusive resort that maybe would be different than just a regular luxury hotel?
I think all-inclusives, they also are on their different levels depending on what they offer, because you can have an all-inclusive that, yes, you get your drinks. They're going to be baseline drinks, regular beer, spirits, your juices and everything, sodas, everything like that included. And then you have a buffet and maybe a couple different a la carte, like dinner and lunch and maybe breakfast options that you can go to. And so that's all included. And a lot of times they'll say your gratuities are included. Another thing, as far as all inclusive, you may be at a place where, yes, all your food and your drinks, and then they have entertainment that's just, at the pool, around the pool, it's included. At night, they might have a different show that you can watch or take part in, or like a dance. And then there are other places where you may have to pay additional for like workout classes or workshops, but then there's some that all of the workshops and the yoga classes and all that are automatically included. So you don't even have to think about adding that as an extra expense. The pros, it's, you have everything that you need. It's convenient. You don't have to worry about it. A lot of them have even room service included all day. So, if whenever you're hungry or if you want to sleep in that day, you can just call and order and have it, brought to your room. But then, like you said, you may get so much there and it's so great that you don't go outside of the resort. And that might be fine for some people.
Depends on what you're looking for.
Right.
I think it definitely depends on what you're looking for. And like she said, there's a huge range of all-inclusive. Like all-inclusive is not really one term. Like what's all in the all-inclusive? That's something you need to ask into when you're booking an all-inclusive. And because Sandals and Beaches, they include also a lot of sports and activities and boating and like a bunch of other things that are included as well. And And so it really, you need to know what does all mean. Do they have one restaurant or do they have 7 to choose from and all of them are included? Do they have 7 restaurants and all but 2 of them are included and 2 you pay extra? Those are the kinds of things you need to know. And also different pay levels at different all-inclusives, like the room category you choose could also mean that you come with extra or less amenities. So if you're in a club level suite or something, you might have butler service where they're bringing you drinks by the pool or wherever you are. They're hunting you down to get you what you need. They're arranging dinner reservations and a bunch of other things. So, that level of service is different than someone who bought the base rate room and they don't have a butler and they still have everything included, but they don't necessarily have that level of service. So these are the kinds of things to consider when you're making decisions. And also when you're watching social media and somebody's showing you the butler handing them a drink by the pool, just remember that that's not base level. They paid extra for those services. So keep in mind when you're looking at social media content and then at a website, what you see on social media may not be what you really want to pay for. So just something to look into.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum and let's talk about like hostels and those type of accommodations. When my daughter was traveling to Austria, we needed somewhere for her to stay the first night, and I was looking at different options. And one of the options was even just like this. It was literally like a little cubicle with it's like you couldn't even walk into it. You just like crawled into the bed, and it had little compartments for maybe you to plug your phone, and a little bit of like a little overnight bag maybe would fit, but like not even a whole suitcase. Suitcase was stored outside. And it was literally like, it looked like a pod.
Yeah, they're called sleeping pods.
Yeah. It looked really cool, but I don't know if I could sleep in one. We didn't go with that. She did end up staying in a hostel. So let's talk about that. Hostels are really popular, especially in Europe. And Kara, I know that you got some experience with that. Do you want to kind of tell us about hostels?
Oh yeah, I've been in many hostels. They are obviously way more cost efficient. There's a reason they're way more cost efficient. Now there are levels. I mean, just like anything, there are levels to it. You can get a private room in a hostel. It's not the most common option. Typically, if you're seeking out a hostel, you're prepared to be sharing a room with others, and you can even choose like all women, all men, or co-ed oftentimes. And what you're paying for, obviously, is that bed or that cot or that half of a bunk bed. And just like anything else, they are in essentially the business of sales. So they are going to spruce up those photos. And you want to, when it comes to hostels, you really want to do your research carefully and thoroughly, because there is a very wide range. I fortunately have pretty much always been in a safe situation staying in a hostel. There was one time that I messed up. I booked the wrong weekend and showed up not realizing it. And then I showed up in Scotland at night by myself for the first time. And they were like, oh no, we have you for, I think it was the following weekend. And I was like, well, that's too bad because I'm here right now. What can I do? So they're like, well, we have this one room with 6 beds. If you want to, there's one guy in there right now. And I was like, do I have another option? And they're like, nope. So I said, okay. And I'm pretty sure that guy was maybe living there. There was like a tub. He had like a tub stored under the thing, which is another thing, if you don't have a place to live, it's a cheap option for a night or a few nights or a week or a few weeks. And just to be extra cautious, I slept differently. I slept with my things, just to be safe. He didn't give me any feeling that he was a dangerous person. But just, that's just something that you have to be very aware of. Traveling in hostels. Oftentimes traveling in hostels are a solo venture. Not always. I've stayed in a room where it was like a girls' trip and they were really fun and I made some friends. It can be like a really fun situation, a really great way to meet people from other countries. Again, have your wits about you, like, be careful who you're socializing with and how freely you're giving information or time. But as far as the hostel itself, it's pretty much what you need. It's your necessities, and it's not much more than that. So it was the way I traveled around Europe when I was in college. It is not the way I travel around Europe now. And it was great for me then. It checked all the boxes that I needed checked on the budget that I had. I used a website called Hostel World, and it was easy to use. It has, we were just mentioning this earlier, it has expanded its scope. So Hostel World is now functioning in the United States. I would not use it in the United States personally. I have never used it, but it now, there are now hostels in the States to use. Yeah.
Anybody else have a hostel experience?
I do, but I did not enjoy it, and I don't recommend it. But I also was not a college kid. Like, going as a grown adult, having traveled the world in many different ways, it was a major step back for me. And I didn't realize how, particular I had gotten until I had that experience. And then I was like, oh, I can't just sleep anywhere. I didn't sleep. I was very uncomfortable. I was very aware of the fact that I didn't know the people around me and how vulnerable we are when we sleep. And so I did not enjoy the experience at this stage in my life. If I had been with friends, there's even if that's not always true, sometimes we imagine we're safer when our friends are nearby. I could have imagined it enough to sleep probably, but because I was sleeping with people I didn't know, and then it's shared bathrooms. There's just a lot about it that's not what we're used to when you haven't been traveling that way. So I think there's a reason it makes sense in college, because our lives in college are shared.
Mm-hmm.
We're very used to having people we don't know around us all the time, and that's our normal everyday life when you're at that age. And so it doesn't feel as different, I think, than when you've been traveling and staying in your own private room with your private bathroom and your private spaces, and nobody in the building knows who you are except for the front desk, and so that it's just a different kind of experience. But that doesn't mean it has to be unpleasant. I think, like every other item we're talking about, read reviews, read real people's excerpts of their trips and what they experience, because the variety of experiences across hostels in particular is so different.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you know what you're getting into before you show up.
There is, when I've experienced hostels, the one I've been in, actually I think it was in the United States. We picked it because it was cheaper, but we had a private room.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some that do have private spaces, and so sometimes they have those options where you're either in a shared space or in a private space. And so in that case, it just felt more like, a guest house or a bed and breakfast, kind of idea, but it was called hostel.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, for a client at one point, they were looking for the least expensive thing. And I noticed that even though it was on a hotel site, it was also called a hostel. And I was like, are you sure this is called a hostel? You might, you're going to have to not store your luggage in this room, and it's going to be very tight. So, there are different options. So you just have to know.
Mm-hmm. Join us next week for part 2 of our podcast on international travel accommodations. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Travel Bug Girls podcast. Be sure to subscribe to get our new episodes every week. We'd love to connect with you on social media. Share your answer to this week's podcast question with us at facebook.com/travelbuggirls. You can find us on your favorite social media by using @TravelBugGirls. Want to join our VIP group? You'll find us on Facebook groups under TBG Travel Bugs. Learn more about the Travel Bug Girls and what we do on our website at travelbuggirls.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and safe travels.